Hello there, I'm the Biblical Translator, and I like to introduce myself. I tend to read the Bible, passages of the Bible, and I'm starting from the New Testament. This is a relatively new channel, and I was inspired to do it. So what I do is I go through the Bible and I try to simplify it by paraphrasing and giving it my interpretation. Over the years, people have translated and retranslated and interpreted the Bible, and sometimes it does still feel far removed from us. We don't really understand its true context and how it relates to us today. So I'd like to think that my role is to help you to identify with how the Bible relates to us today. And so today's scripture is Mark 8:11, and it's where the Pharisees were taunting Jesus, or kind of goading him, or keep on asking him to do miraculous signs. And it was frustrating for Jesus, because Jesus said, look, I'm not going to do any more miracles or show you any more miraculous signs in this generation. Why did he say that? Because no matter how many times they saw miracles, they still needed reassurance. How many times did Jesus have to show miracles, make the blind see, the deaf hear, the lame walk? How many times did he see it? They had the privilege of witnessing those miracles. We don't have that privilege. We have to believe on faith. We have to believe what we're reading is true. Yet those people witnessed the miracles, and yet they were still demanding proof and evidence and constant reassurance. And it must have been frustrating for him. So when we're thinking about how difficult it is for us to believe the Bible, we should reflect on those people who lived in those times and who constantly needed reassurance. It's like how we are in our relationships today. How many of us today, regardless of what our partners do for us and or don't do, we need constant reassurance. We are so insecure within ourselves. No matter what our parents do, no what our partners do, no matter what our employers do, it's never enough. We're never satisfied. We need this constant validation, this constant reassurance. Why is that? Why can't we just have faith in ourselves? Self-belief. And why can't we? I mean, we've witnessed miracles throughout the years. I've witnessed so many miracles in my life. And I've got to the point where, sometimes I think to myself, will God answer my prayer? And then I say to myself, but Myrna, it's your irresponsibility while you lost that gift. God has given you so much over the years. And what have I done? At those times I thought I thought I didn't deserve it. So I sold it or gave it away or didn't give it the value that I needed to, or that I would recognize now. And that's what we do. We're constantly given miracles and gifts and opportunities, but we either take them for granted or we do not believe we deserve them, and so we let them pass us by. So I can understand why Jesus said, he's not going to perform any more miraculous signs, because how much does it take for you to have faith in me? This is what Jesus must have been saying. What else must I do? What's interesting in this scripture is that he used spit to put on the tongue of the man who was dumb so he could speak. And he used spit to put on the eyes of the man who could see people, but they looked like trees walking around. He couldn't see clearly. And it's interesting, could you imagine today a doctor or anybody using spit in their mouth to heal? I mean, with COVID and goodness knows what else, you'd run a mile. It's ironic, though, when people kiss or French kiss, how they exchange saliva, and how sometimes that saliva is what draws two people together. It's what creates intimacy. Yes, you can catch cold and you can catch infections and goodness knows what else. But spit is intimacy, isn't it? I mean, you'd have to be really close to someone. You'd have to really love somebody to use your spit and for that person to receive that spit. So you can imagine Jesus is actually showing intimacy and love when he is healing. He's actually taking his spit, and that person is entrusting his spit on their body to heal them. And I'm not saying we must frivolously go around giving our spit to all and sundry to show love. But what I'm telling you is that there are miracles that happen all the time, and they are things that happen in such a way that we would not consider today. You know, today versus back in the day is like chalk and cheese. The methods they used back then would be frowned upon today. But we just need to believe that there are miracles. We have to believe in the miracles that come into our lives. And in order to believe in them, we have to receive them and accept them and know that it is a miracle. Sometimes we take so much for granted. I remember it was in the 1980s, and I was living in America at the time, and I didn't know anything about the green card. I just decided to go to America and stay there. I won't go into too much of my history, and stay there. But I found out that I'd need a green card. And I had, I think, 2 weeks left on my passport before it expired. And I said, what am I going to do? Do I need to go back to the UK from a situation I didn't want to be in? Or if I'm meant to stay, and this was my prayer, Lord, if I'm meant to stay in America, please do something to let me stay. And I was working at a firm of solicitors, and there was a guy there who fancied me, and he said, look, I'll take you out for Valentine's Day. It was Valentine's week. And I said, it's no point because I've only got 2 weeks on my passport. And he said, so why don't you go down to the UN and see if they'll accept you? As long as your passport is valid, they might accept you. I went to the UN, and the day I went there was the day they lifted the stop on recruiting people, and I was able to get a job. Yes, initially it was 6 months. They gave me a temporary contract, but I got a job at the UN. Now, if that isn't a miracle, I don't know what is. Extended my passport for 6 months. That 6 months ended up to another 6 months, another 6 months, a year, until I was a permanent employee. But my point is that at that point, I didn't realize that was a miracle. But on reflection, that was definitely a miracle. And we see miracles all the time. And all the time we're asking God to repeat the miracle. He can't keep repeating the bloody miracles. Can you imagine how exhausting that is with all the people in the world? You know, I've showed you love. I've showed you what I can do. This is Jesus. I've proved to you what I can do, and yet you're still asking me every day to prove myself. I don't need to prove myself anymore. And so you need to take responsibility for your life. You need to look and see and absorb and accept and appreciate and be grateful for the miracles in your life, and stop asking for them to be repeated, because they won't be repeated. They might be repeated if God is in a good mood, but don't take it for granted. Anyway, I'm going to stop it there. I'm the Biblical Translator. I hope you found this scripture interesting, and that's all for now. Bye-bye.